Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Sorry, I'm a bit late for my class today. I was trying to get a perfect lighting for where I was going to sit down, so I wanted to work on the sun, so I was going to have a very sharp background and all that. But it took me quite a while before coming up. So, as you listen to this, I wanted to share this with as many people as possible. Okay, I'll be talking about something very simple, something we all understand, something we all have an idea about. Okay, and what I'll be talking about today is the importance of education. The importance of education. That's what I'll be talking about. All right. We know that education is a big thing. I mean, formal education is a big thing around the world. Almost everybody wants to go to school. I want to have this. I want to have a BSc. I want to have an MSc. I want to have a PhD. Hi, Albert Agudosi. So good to see you. How are you and how is the family? It's good to see you again. How are you doing in this period of, I don't like to call it lockdown, but I like to call it in this period of maybe personal development or self-discovery. It's good to see you. So today, I will talk to you about the importance of education. And the reason why I decided to talk about this is because people don't really understand the concept, the basic idea behind being educated. All right. So it's easy to throw it out of the window because you don't understand what it is or because you don't understand the importance of education in itself. If you do, you will make it a priority in your life and in the life of your family to ensure that you are all educated. All right. When I say you are all educated, we are going to see what I am talking about. So I'm going to start with a quote by Jim Rohn, and he says, formal education will make you a living. All right. Formal education will make you a living, while self-education will make you a fortune. All right. Formal education will make you a living, while self-education will make you a fortune. When I say fortune, I'm not necessarily talking about in terms of money alone. All right. Money is very crucial. Money is very important. But I'm also talking about innate treasures. All right. Innate treasures that is within you. Innate treasures that you have in your mind. Innate treasures that God has actually created you with. All right. So if it is important to understand what education is, so as to have a perfect worldview on how to handle life, so as to have a perfect worldview on how you can actually do what you do. Now, what is education? Education is derived from the Latin word educo. All right. What does educo means? Educo means to derive from within. All right. Educo means to bring out. All right. Educo means to bring forth. All right. Educo means to develop from within. Now, my question is, or my assertion is, when every child is born, all right, when everyone is born, God actually puts innate gift into them. God actually puts in innate abilities into them. God actually puts in things that they were meant to do on the face of the earth. All right. That's how God actually created us. All right. So God created each and every person with innate abilities. Okay. Inborn abilities. All right. So that is why when you educate people, you bring out what is within them. All right. You bring out the best part of them. You bring out what God has actually deposited into their lives. So education, like I said, is derived from the word educo. It means to bring out from within. You can also say education is from the Latin word educo, educare, which means to nourish. To nourish, to bring up. To nourish, to bring up. To nourish and to bring up. When you nourish, what are you nourishing? You are nourishing the mind of your child. You are nourishing the mind of people. You are bringing up, you are forming, you are molding the minds of people. That is what you are doing. So education also means educare, which means to nourish. and to bring up. All right. So we know that education is divided into formal education and informal education. What is formal education? Formal education is the present system that we have in our world. Okay, childhood education, primary education, secondary education, tertiary education. So those are systems of formal education, which is very important. Okay, we cannot do away with formal education because it has the role it plays. Part of the roles where formal education plays is social intelligence. Okay, but Proctor says the essence of formal education is social intelligence. What does social intelligence has to talk about? It talks about when you meet with people from different parts of the world to share ideas. When you meet with people from the different spheres of life within the university system, you learn from each other, culture, language. You are able to learn the way they do things. You are able to learn about their culture. So when we talk about culture, what are we talking about? We are talking about art. We are talking about creativity. We are talking about concept, ideas that has to do with some particular set of people. All right. So formal education is very important. You cannot do away with it. So we find young people who say, I don't like to use this example, but some of them will say, I don't think school is important. Let me just find something else to do, or I just want to go and do this. All right. Yes, if you are convinced that you can thrive through, all right, through the pain of hard work, and you think that you can educate yourself to become whosoever you want to become, yes, it's fine. All right. But when you are within the school environment, you are able to learn a lot. All right. Even from your lecturers, from your teachers, from your co-students, from your colleagues, even from people who are not formal staffs of the organization. All right. So formal education is important. Now, what is informal education? Informal education is the education you give to yourself. Informal education is the education that is not structured, but you can actually structure it yourself. Informal education is the education that has to do with the the conscious and the intentional development of your mind. Informal education is the education that you nourish yourself with. That is why if you do not train your child properly in the way it should go, when he gets to maybe 20, 30, it begins to teach himself all again. Why? Because he has not passed through the process it needs to pass through. Okay, so formal education is important. Informal education is important. But the best form of education you can give yourself is self-education. All right, self-education is beautiful. It's the beauty of life. The ability for you to sit down and structure curriculum for yourself so as to bring out the best values in your life, so as to bring out the best gift God has given you, so as to bring out the best talent, so as to nourish your talent, so as to make yourself a personality. All right. Who is a personality? A personality is someone who has been able to identify why God has created him. Who is a personality? A personality is someone who is not driven by emotions. Emotions are very important because when you are attached emotions with your goals, you achieve your dreams. So emotions are important, but you shouldn't be driven by emotions. All right. Sometimes we find ourselves into being driven by emotions. No, you should be driven by, you should know your goal. You should know your desires. You should know what you want to achieve in life. At the same time, when you attach emotions with your goals, you are able to get concrete results. So informal education is the best form of education. Informal education has to do with self-education. So self-education is the beauty of life. All right. So it's very important that you take note. Aside, it's easy to, not that easy, but you know that you have lectures in the morning. So you wake up at that time. You know that if you don't go to class, your lecturer might not grade you. They might grade you for lack of attendance. So you have to go to class. You know that if you don't go to school, you might not have your full grades. You might fail that course. So you have to go to class. So it has been structured for you. It has been created for you. It is a system that has been created for you. But when it comes to informal education or self-education, it is a system that you have created for yourself. That is why for people like us, for people like you and me, even though people are screaming, there's a lockdown. They are also saying, I don't know what to do with my time, because we are used to developing ourselves. We are not bothered. We know that life has to be lived intentionally. We know that life has to be lived consciously on a daily basis. So we are not, for us, it's not a lockdown, because our minds are constantly functioning to the state that when we are even sleeping, we have our minds processing. So informal education is very important. The next point, education has to do with discovering the laws that governs life. All right? Education has to do with the laws, discovering the laws that governs life. Remember that I already defined that education has to do with to bring forth, to bring within. But when God created life, when God created the heaven and the earth, when he created the earth, he actually put laws that governs the earth. Okay? From the angle of the positivists, they call them positivism, or the positivists, they see it as life governed by cause and effect. All right? If anything that is governed by cause and effect has to do with being governed by laws. So the essence of going to school, the essence of personal development is to be able to discover those laws that governs life. It simply means that if you say you are educated, there's a general concept of education you must know. That means that in each area of your life, because your life concerns your financial area, it concerns your marital area, it concerns your formal education, it concerns your spiritual area. Every part of your life have laws governing it. All right? It has laws governing it, and education makes you to discover those laws. All right? So education makes you to discover those laws. Like, we have different spheres of influence. We have different spheres of life. Economics, the governance or government. We have sports, health, entertainment. There are laws governing all those areas. It simply means that if your child goes to school, one of the things you must inform him or her about is, have you discovered the laws that govern your course? Have you discovered those laws? Because if you discover those laws, that is when you can make worthy contribution. That is when you can make a contribution to the development of mankind. That is when you can make intentional contribution to the world. So I should also state that education starts with self-discovery. All right? The whole essence of you being educated, whether formal or informal, is for you to be able to discover yourself. When you discover yourself, you will not be moved by what is going on around the world. It's not about perfection, all right? It's not about trying to make yourself so perfect that you won't make mistakes. No, that's not what I'm talking about. But I'm talking about the fact that, and the truth that, when you discover yourself, you will notice that you become a person, a full personality. So the essence of why you and me go to school is to be able to discover myself. It is for you to be able to discover yourself. So if you are taking a course in economics, I love economics. I'm an economist, okay? That's what I did all through my degrees, and that is what I'm still doing. So if I'm taking a course in economics, I must ask myself, how does this course apply to my life? What is the importance of this course to my family? How does this course relate to the world at large? So, and I want to say to you, I think it is getting to a point in time where it is important for each and every student to understand how the economy works. How the economy works. If you understand how the economy works, then you are able to understand how policies are made. If you understand how policies are made, you'll be able to know the gaps. All right. In research, they call something the gaps in literature. You are able to understand the gaps in the world, in our world. So when you identify the gap in our world, you are able to identify the areas you want to make contribution. Now, when you are making contribution, it's not about people applauding you. No, it's not about people saying, hey, you are doing a great job. No, but you know it is a gap. How do you know it is a gap? Because you have gone through the process of development. You have been able to nourish yourself, or you've been able to sit under teachings or trainings that is able to bring out the best in you, so you are able to contribute to the gap of the world. So education starts with self-discovery. So you must place premium on self-discovery. You must place premium on discovering yourself on a daily basis. Whosoever stops to grow declines. So the moment you stop to grow directly proportional, just like a supply curve. Sorry, I have to talk about economics a little bit. Because in supply, when price goes up, what happens to quantity? Quantity also grows up. Now, what happens in growth is if you are not growing directly, you are also declining. It is directly related to each other. So education has to do with self-discovery. I love this quote by Bob Proctor. It says, we are spiritual creatures. We have an intellect and we live in a physical body. All right? We are spiritual creatures. We have an intellect and we live in a spiritual body, in a physical body. So the formal system cannot measure your brain, all right? Even though there are processes, there are scientific processes that measures the intelligence of man, that measures how well a man can actually be intelligent. But because they are not the creator of our brains and our systems, you can't measure the full intelligence of the man. Why? Because I didn't create that man. You didn't create that man. God created all of us. So because God created all of us, and you know that God does not create something without giving him or her with the full function of how that thing is meant to operate. All right? When God creates something, he puts everything into him for him to operate properly. That's why I was listening to Dr. Sunday. He said, Adelaja, he said, God created us in such a way that even when you are sleeping, your body is working automatically. So God already put system in place that when this man is sleeping, he's going to have a dream. And that dream can come in form of, it depends on how you dream or what you dream about. All right? When you are sleeping, guess what? Your body is functioning, your internal organs, your brain, everything is working. So that's how God created us. So even though scientific processes are very important, we do not live our lives based on scientific processes alone. No, this is just a method. Science is a method of getting things done. Science is a method of discovery. All right? So we are spiritual creatures. We have an intellect. That's how God created us. And we live in a physical body. Your body is very important. So being educated also means that you take care of your body. You do exercise. All right? You give your body the best nutrient that it needs to have. You eat healthy food. All right? You jog, you walk, you do press-ups. All right? It's also part of being educated, because the reason why we do whatever we do is to ensure that we live to the maximum time that God wants us to live and achieve whatever He needs us to achieve. So if we don't take care of ourselves, if we don't eat good food, I'm also speaking to myself. So we are doing harm to ourselves, all right? So we can't blame God for it. It's our fault. So I also said to be educated is to have a solid idea of what the world should look like. To be educated is to have a solid imagination. All right, the way God created us, He built in us in such a way that when you imagine something and you stay on it consistently over time, and you have been taught the processes to bring that thing into reality, guess what? You come up with a product. So imagination is part of life. Okay, students should be, Bob Proctor said, before any student takes any exam, students should be told to imagine what is the grade you want to have in this course. Once you imagine the grade you want to have in the course, what do? You sit down to study. Especially when you have been equipped, the process, what you need to do to have a good grade, then you get that done. So our imagination is very important. That's why sometimes when you go into solitude, or sometimes when you have a 5 minutes break to yourself, just sit down and begin to imagine, what kind of life do I want to live? What kind of product do I want to produce? How do I want to raise my children? What kind of books do I want to write? Do I want to build a university? Do I want to build a bank? All right? It starts with the mind. It starts with the imagination. And that is how you should bring up your kids at a very early age. As when your kids are small, you must continuously tell them. Tell them to dream very big. Okay, why? Because God is big. Tell them to think very big. Why? Because God is big. Tell them to think in a very huge way. We should not be limited by the way man thinks. Okay? The way we think is not the way God thinks. For the fact that God gave us a brain means that we can do what he asks us to do. For the fact that God gave us a brain means that we can come up with inventions that have never been that has never been seen. So imagination is very important. You must put your imagination to work. When you imagine, what do? You get your jotter, you get your notebook and begin to write whatever you imagine, and never doubt that it cannot be achieved. Once you doubt it, it means that you don't believe in yourself. It means that you don't even believe in the God that you serve. Why? God created the heavens and earth. Look at the creativity around the earth. In this time when you go outside, you look at the mountain, look at the trees. Beautiful, the beautiful weather out here. So merely seeing nature and the creativity of nature should quicken the way you think. It should let you know that nothing is impossible. Why do I say nothing is impossible? Because God actually put us here for a purpose. And we can't blame where we are coming from. We can't always blame the people at the back and say, oh, it's my father, it's my mother. How I wish. Yes, we have been there. The moment you know that you have not equipped yourself enough to think properly, guess what? You settle down. Okay, they call it capstone. For all the things that you have missed, you settle down and get yourself educated into the laws of life. Get yourself educated in those things that are important. What are those things that are important? The most important things are the things that cannot be seen. What are those things that cannot be seen? You cannot see love with your physical eyes. What you can see is the act of love, all right? But you can't see it. You can't see integrity with your physical eyes. But what you can see is the act of integrity, all right? The real hard work that has to do with the work of the mind. You can't see it with your eyes, but you can see the act of hard work. So get yourself immersed into the most important things of life, and don't be carried away with what you see around, okay? Because life does not consist of what the man physically owns. If you drive yourself just to have physical things, you're going to lose a lot. In fact, if you drive yourself to have physical things, you are losing the beauty of life, because the beauty of life is not what eyes can see with the physical eyes. All right, so it's important you have developed your imagination. Now, my next point is to be educated is to understand what I want to talk about now. One, and the topic of this is, what is the importance of education? What is the importance of education? One, the proof that I am educated, the proof that you are educated is the ability to think. You must be able to think for yourself. You must be able to think for your family. At a very early age, all right? Our parents do our thinking for us. This is the school you should go to, this, that, and all that, which is very good, especially if you have been taught by wonderful, intellectual, sound, spiritual parents. Shout out to my dad and mom. I love you always for all that you've done, for training me in the way I should go. Yes, there are parts I needed to develop by myself, but at least they gave me the required education I needed. Now, the proof that you are educated is the ability to think. It simply means that when they tell you something, for example, what I'm saying, you don't accept what I say, hook, line, and sinker. You must ask yourself, what is it talking about? What is talking about? Does it correspond to the laws of life? Whatever it's talking about, does it correspond to the principles of life? Whatever it's talking about, does it correspond to what life is? Okay, so you have to be able to think for yourself. That is why you don't allow people to do the most important thinking you should do. They don't do it for you. You can have ideas from people. You can have ideas, the right ideas coming from different places, but you must be resolute. The final decision that you make should be out of the thinking that you make for yourself. All right. So the proof of education is to be able to think, and number two, to think is to ask questions. 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 That's why you find out a little child, it keeps asking, What is this? What is that? It is called curiosity. Curiosity is one of the beauties of life. That is the innate gift God has given us. It means that you don't stop a child from asking questions. The moment you stop asking questions, the moment you stop your children from asking questions, that is the moment they stop to grow. That is the moment they stop to discover. That is the moment they stop to see opportunities out there. The moment they stop asking questions, that is the moment they stop contributing to the development of the world. So it's important to think. Two, it's important to ask questions. If you're not clear about any given thing, all right? If you're not clear, ask questions. There's no crime in asking questions. And you don't insult people because they are trying to understand what you're talking about. You don't abuse them. All right? You don't tear them down because they don't understand what you're saying. And the reason why they don't understand what you're saying is because they don't see what you see. So you have to be able to explain it clearly. All right? So asking questions, to think. All right? Then also, to be educated is to be able to convert your ideas into products and services. To be educated is to be able to convert your ideas into products and services. So theories are very important, all right? And the more you go through the process of education, the more you know that theories are important. What are theories? Theories are foundational principles that guide every sphere of life. Okay? Those theories must be based on absolute truth. All right? So when you have an idea, because you've been properly taught how to convert your ideas into a product or a service, it won't be difficult for you. And that's one of the problems of developing countries. That's one of the problems of countries who do not understand the importance of education. All right? That is why they don't place premium, or they don't place importance on education. Why? Because they don't understand what education is. If you know that education has to do with you converting your ideas into products and services, then you will invest into it. That's why leaders of nations would prefer to launder money and steal the money instead of investing in education, infrastructures of education. All right, instead of investing in research and development, instead of investing in developing the minds of people, instead of investing in ensuring that people are able to invent, produce something. Okay, the best nations of the world, the best nations of the world are nations that are into research and development. All right, they are into research. They are constantly working. When I say best, does not mean they don't have their own difficulties. I mean those who are able to contribute to the growth of the world, such as technology. Most of the technology comes from developed countries. All right, developing countries are now catching up. So it's important you are able to convert your ideas into product and services. All right. Also, the importance, the proof that you're educated is to understand the laws that govern life. I already mentioned that. So find out whatever you're trying to learn and ask yourself, what is the law that governs this area that I'm trying to go into? All right. What are those laws that govern that area? Another point that they don't tell you in the classroom, to be educated is to be compassionate. To be educated is to love one another. To be educated is to be concerned for one another. That's why the best of all nations in the world also are nations that are concerned for the less privileged. The best of all nations are nations that provide for people who don't have enough to eat. Okay? The best of all nations are nations that provide low-cost housing estates or houses for people who don't have places to live. The reason why the world is the way it is because we are less compassionate. More of talking and less of compassion in the way we act. It is important for us to talk. It is much more important for us to act. So to be educated is to be compassionate. So if you find out that another country is saying, oh, those black set of people, they are black, they are dark, they are not humans. The person is not educated. In fact, the person lacks education. Why? Because his brain is not working properly. If your brain is working properly, you will know that humans are not defined by the color, their physical colors. Humans are defined by what they have been made of, their mind. And God created everybody, not on the basis of color. It's on the basis of who you are. It is within. So those who lack compassion, those who treat others with disdain, those who push other people down, those who are willing to just do anything to and refer to people with just any kind of words, they are yet to be educated. Okay? Their brain needs to be checked. Why? Because compassion, love is the basis of life. The reason why you even have development, at least certain development of the world, is because of love in itself. Love is the reason why you and I, we are here. The love of mankind. God had to die. Jesus had to send his son to die. Why? Because of the love he has for you and me. So it's important. Though they will include this in the textbook of economics. All right? They throw this out. All right? But compassion is very important. Compassion is a proof that you're educated. You treat all men with respect. All men, you treat them with respect. Okay? So I already talked about imagination, having perfect imagination. To be educated is to understand who you are. I already mentioned that. So you must give attention to who you really are. Not what others say you are. Who you really are. Yes, listen to people. What are they saying about me? What is that? Then you think, is that me? Is that who I am? You tell yourself, no, that is not who I am. I know who I am. I am a man of wisdom. I'm a woman of wisdom. I respect people. I have compassion. I love people. I speak the truth. So the ability to understand yourself is a proof of education. All right. Also, education allows you to entertain people's ideas without insulting them or without telling them off. All right. I know we like people to know what the ideas we have in our mind. We want people to know that, this is my own. This is what I'm thinking. But being educated is for you to entertain other people's thoughts, to be able to entertain people's questions without telling them off or without insulting them. To be educated is to be able to contribute to the development of the world. And to contribute to the development of the world, it is not necessarily what man has to encourage you for. All right? It's not someone that will tell you, oh, you are doing so. No, you should know what you're doing. So when you know what you're doing, whether people tell you well done or not, because you know that you are playing your own quota to the development of the world, then you are good to go. Also, for those who are taking from the world without putting back into it, they are thieves. All right? It means that you don't consume everything. You have to give back. You have to give back maybe by teaching, by words, by money, by something, by money, by resources, by the words of your mouth, by impacting the life of a child, by going to motherless babies' homes and all that, to give back to the community. And note, it is not because you want man to pat you on the back for it. No, that's not why you do what you do. You do what you do because you do it as unto God. Not because necessarily you want man to say, yes, if they see it during the process, that's fine. But you do it because you know only parasites take things without giving back. If you want anything, if you want our world to move forward, then Africa, all the nations of the world, we must be willing to contribute to the development of the world. It's very important. Africans can't keep, or African nations can't keep collecting money from developed countries. They can't keep doing that. You can't keep collecting money from developed countries and you want those countries to see you the way they should see you. No. It's just like in a relationship. You have to play your part. The other person has to play his part. If the person is not playing his part, you can't see the person the correct way you should see him. Not that insulting the person, but it takes two. All right? It takes three. It takes four. They are called nodes. They are called connections. We have to connect and learn from each other. So African countries have to stop borrowing and collecting money from developed countries. I know, yes, there are dynamics to this in economics, but you can't keep borrowing all the rest of your life. You've been doing it for years, 10, 20 years. How long do you want to continue? It's time for you to understand the resources that you have. Convert those resources into monetary gains and be able to multiply whatever you make every year. We have the best of all resources in the world. We can't keep collecting from those countries. What are we producing? We have to produce something. We have to look at our gift, our resources, and see what we can contribute to the development of the world. It's very important. Okay? A life of education is a life of growth. A life of education is a life of growth. On a daily basis, just as you eat, okay? Just as you eat chicken, fried rice, you take water and all that. You should also nourish your mind. You should ensure that you feed your mind. Okay, the mind can be developed, can be divided into the conscious and the subconscious mind. The conscious mind is the thinking mind. The subconscious mind feeds from the conscious mind. Okay, so when you find a child's thinking pattern, the conscious mind has been fed with a particular information for a long time. So it goes into the subconscious. So when you do things without even thinking about it, naturally you do things. That's your subconscious mind. That's just the way, that's what you have been fed with for a long amount of time. So it's important for us to grow, to feed our mind. So whatever you feed, if you feed your conscious mind with the truth for a long time, you feed it with the truth. You feed it with the truth. You are studying your Bible. You are reading the words of Jesus. You are reading good books, all right? Economics. Just find whatever good book based on absolute truth. That goes into your subconscious mind. You begin to act in the proper way you should act. The reason why we have people that are malfunctioning in our society is because they've been fed with lies, junks, deception. Okay? And the last point I have to give to you is, to be educated is to understand how research is done. Okay? To be educated is to understand research. There's a process, scientific process of carrying out research. First, you start by asking questions. Is this true? What is the this of this? How does education impact economic growth? How does education affect our lives? You ask yourself another question. It's called a guess, hypothesis. So you ask yourself, does education impact our life positively or negatively? So you tell yourself, oh, education impacts our life positively. What do you do next? You find out, you test your guess, you test your hypothesis. So once you test your hypothesis and you know that your results have been consistent, you look at other research and you find out that using the necessary variables possible, they've been able to find out that yes, education affects economic growth. What do? You convey your result out. So when you convey your result out, what do? You make recommendations. When recommendations are made, what do? Then that's what leads to policy recommendations. That's how policies are made. That's how policies are executed based on research. So you have to be able to carry out the necessary research so as to know the truth for yourself, so as to know the truth of how the economy works, so as to know the truth of how our health system works. Okay? So as to know the truth of our health system works. I hope you've been able to learn. I hope I've been able to convey knowledge into you. I hope I've been able to pass in at least the importance. Few things I've learned through my course of education in the educational field, I've been able to pass it to you. All right, so it's a time to get to work. Produce whatever you need to produce whatever service you need to produce that will last long after you are all gone. All right, so thank you so much. Let me just say hello to everybody. My wife is here. Love you, babe. Miss Chinwe, I can see you. Love you. How are you? How's the family? So good to see you. Damap, hope you're doing good. Veronica, so good to see you. Bashir, so good to see you. Shewa Guinea, so good to see you. Mrs. Teller, so good to see you. Miss Oriyomi, how are you? How's your family? I don't like to call it lockdown, but how are you doing? I hope you're fine. For us, it's a good time for us. We keep learning. Then Albert Agudosi, how are you? So good to see you. And thank you to I appreciate you. So hopefully next week I'll be here to talk about something else. It's time for me to give back my knowledge to the world. Whatever I know, someone out there will be learning from it. I love you all. Stay motivated, stay encouraged, stay happy, eat good food, stay healthy, and feed your mind with the most important information and the most important things of the world. I love you, and bye.